Naka-blackmail ako ng isang tao or dalawang tao. Na-blackmail ko ng 300,000 to 500,000.
Isang buwan na nakaka-blackmail kayo ng isang tao? Ilang tao na ba-blackmail?
Marami. Kasi sa isang buwan, marami talaga kami na blackmail. Kasi everyday kami nag-online. Kahit sabihin mo may pera na, kumita na kami. Once na nag-online kami, nire-reserve lang muna namin yung iba para may income pa rin kami. Kumbaga, once na ma-blackmail pa namin yung magkakaroon pa kami ng pera once na nawala na ulit kami ng pera. 50-50. For example, sabihin natin 50,000, tig 25,000 kami. Wala ako talaga akong idea na gano'n yung magiging trabaho ko kasi nga in-invite lang din ako ng friend na sabi may easy money nakikita through online lang. Siya talaga yung parang putok yung pangalan na siya yung madam-madam talaga doon. Siya yung nauna. Mayaman na talaga. As in. May mga kotse at bahay na. Ilang kotse, ilang bahay. Middle lang talaga yung pamumuhay nila. Sabi natin may kaya or ano. Tapos nung nag-start yung ganong pamumuhay, doon na siya naging big time talaga na bonggang-bonggang pasabog, ganun. Bigla na lang siyang umangat sa lahat. Wala siyang ginagawa, tutuusin. Mag-claim lang ng pera, magpasahod lang ng tao. Hindi ko pa siya talaga totally nakikita. Naririnig ko lang sa sa mga bakla na yun nga na madam talaga siya na siya nag-start ng nung ganong bagay, ganong serbisyo or bagay na na pagkakakitaan, na mabilis.
I had no idea what this crime was or how it could possibly work until I started looking into it. The first thing we knew about sextortion was a case in Scotland involving a 17-year-old lad called Daniel Perry who apparently received messages through Facebook. Had some money extorted from him, received sums of about £3,000 from him before he ran out of money. They then carried on threatening him, threatening to release these video recordings of him, and they started saying to him, well, why don't you kill yourself, and taunting him even. And the last message he sent to them said, I haven't got any more money, bye-bye. And he then took his own life.
When the PNP Anti-Cybercrime Group was created, and there was a lot of report of sextortion happening in the Philippines, victimizing foreign nationals.
Because, of course, international pressure started to build, especially after the death of Daniel Perry in 2013, and Interpol got involved. There was one, I suppose, a typical victim, a guy in Hong Kong who was working in an office, who was approached on Facebook and who went off into the office toilets and had this exchange with somebody he thought was a woman in the Philippines. 2 hours later, they were demanding money from him. He had to rush out of the office at the end of the day and try and find a Western Union branch and send over, you know, one sum of money, and the next day another demand came. He eventually sent about £2,000 to £3,000 or about $3,000 before plucking up the courage to go to the police and report it. Usually you'll find these crimes might originate in Nigeria or some African countries and then get copied overseas. But here, this was the first that anyone had ever heard of these crimes being perpetrated. In about 2013, 2014, they suddenly started springing up. This crime didn't exist until Maria Capras invented it. The ringleader of a group of young people who were carrying out these crimes of sextortion and extorting money from people through Facebook and getting large sums of money out of it. Her syndicate is thought to have raked in millions of pounds. Huge sums of untraceable money, all of which will be sent to Western Union accounts. Some of the Western Union branches in the area around where she lived recorded the biggest takings of any Western Union branches in the world for a period in 2014, 2015. There was so much money coming in at this time.
So this operation was named the Operation Strike Back, which resulted to the crackdown of this syndicated group, which involves in sextortion cases.
It's quite big because back then, the cyber sex extortion or crime were new to us. It was not that popular yet, so the impact of the story is alarming.
Down, down. Nice. Got it. Down, down.
They were able to track the movements of money, and all the proceeds were going through the two Western Union accounts owned by the Caparas and her live-in partner. I think they were able to seize a couple of laptops, hard disk, sex toys, several motor vehicles, including wig.
I was told that she was still active on social media in prison and sent her a message in hope rather than expectation, saying, I'd like to hear your side of the story. Will you let me come and see you in prison? Insisting she was innocent, insisting that another woman in the village was the real kingpin and she was just being scapegoated. She almost convinced me. I mean, she told me that she'd been set up, she was crying, and I asked her, what did you think about the men who fall for this? And she said, they're stupid. They're just stupid. I told them. I told one or two of them, don't do it again because you've learnt your lesson now. So she could switch quite quickly and was clearly a quite persuasive and highly confident person, probably a sociopath, you'd probably describe her as. But for whatever reasons, and we can only suspect what those reasons might be, no case ever came to court, and it appears to have simply dissolved, and Caparas is free, and she's got her cars back too. Maria Caparas first started working in chat centres where Filipino women sort of strip off and talk to foreigners. And let's face it, it's a pretty degrading line of work to find yourself in. And I imagine that's perhaps where her cynicism about the victims comes in. She's seeing men who are behaving in a very exploitative manner and presumably working with other people who are being similarly exploited.
Like a telemarketing office, call centers, you know, they're selling porn sites. And once they saw an opportunity, someone asking for more.
And at some stage, we don't know when, but clearly a light bulb went on and she realised how she could turn this to her advantage. It's an evil scam, but it's a very clever scam at the same time. And it plays on the fact that people are so ready to strike up conversations with complete strangers.
Na nagtrabaho ako doon, tapos syempre wala pa ako alam yung tinuruan ako eh. Ginawa nila ako ng ng Facebook, pinagawa nila ako ng bagong Facebook. Makatotohanan ng Facebook, may parang merong may-ari talaga na everyday mag-post, everyday selfie, ganyan. Kukuha ka ng may real Facebook account, ayun yung gagamitin mo doon na mukha. So kada post niya, ayun yung popost mo din sa Facebook na yon, gagawin mo talaga siyang tunay na FB.
So yung mga kinukuha mga Facebook na account, yung mga saan dito sa Pilipinas o sa
ibang bansa din, mga Korea, ganon, mga Chinese.
They will use the persona of a pretty young woman. The persona used will be a younger female, fun-loving, a bit silly, a bit more fun and games kind of approach.
In social media platforms, most of the information is available. Easily they can go to your profile go through this information, go through your hobbies, go through your habits, go through the messages, go through the image, videos, and all the comments, knows who is your friends. The main goal for them is to make the account as real as possible, okay? And why? Because they want the victim to trust them easily.
Minsan ka sa akin, hindi sila nagtataka kasi pag bino yung profile ko, updated. Minuminuto may post.
20 years back, you never publish your private image. You hang it outside your door and everybody could easily see it, because that time was something like, that was private information. We are freely posting information about ourselves and just give it away, give it to the public, giving to the scammers. And we just inviting them to just say, this is my life. You want to know anything about my life, here it is. And then you can just have any information about me on my social media.
I believe today there is popular trend where popularity is above privacy. So the more popular you are, the better it is. But again, it's a choice. With popularity and having a public profile comes everything that relates to that and the risk associated. And that's where social platforms are, in general, a great platform for criminals in general to perform their crimes. It's an easy way, and they can hide behind a different, just fake identity.
Basically, they use social media a lot. So they would trawl these social media websites and then interact with people, and they're fishing for potential prey.
Mag-search ka sa Facebook ng, kunyari engineer lives in Malaysia, engineer lives in Singapore, Hong Kong. Alam namin na ayun yung trabaho nila. Mga mayaman, ganon, may pera. Ang tinuka namin yung may maayos na pamilya, yung maganda yung trabaho. Tapos syempre, kukunin mo doon yung may mga details na hindi ka na mahihirapan na kapag clinic mo yung siblings, andun na yung, lalo na usually, mas maganda kapag naka-in relationship sa Facebook.
The way sextortion works is that somebody will send you a friend request on Facebook, somebody you've never met before.
Siyempre, mag-aantay ka ng mag-a-accept sa'yo. Kapag, kunyari, siyempre mag-add ka ngayon, tapos bukas, pag-ising mo, may mag-a-accept sa'yo. Lahat yun, ipipi mo, hi.
Well, if you respond to that chat, okay, then you can easily be hooked to the chat.
You know, a typical legitimate account, you have around 200, 300, 400 Facebook friends, you know? And statistically, when we're trying to analyze the Facebook account of criminals, you see just around 10 friends, foreign friends coming from everywhere.
Oo, yung iba nagdududa na kasi usually yung iba, saan mo nakuha yung Facebook ko, ganon-ganon. Siyempre sabihin ko lang na nakita ko lang sa you may know, ganon. Tapos, bakit mo ako inad? Wala lang, ganon-ganon to make friends, ganon-ganon.
And it's a script, a narrative that they use that almost always works.
Tawag din lang, parang ko na siya, inakit ko na siya.
And they have a mastery over the script, the words to use, the emotions to show, the little attentive messages every day that you can send that makes somebody feel good. It is in this climate of trust that they take advantage of the victim.
We always assume, like those movies, like those Hollywood movies, somebody extremely skillful, running some script and running some codes. However, that, I can say, is a 15% of what's happening in a cybercrime, okay? The other 85% of the cybercrime practically is nothing to do with the technical things. What we call it social engineering.
Social engineering is based on manipulating people, and it is very effective when you create a certain connection with your victim and try to use that in order to achieve your crime.
Mas maraming bakla kasi po mas malawak yung utak ng bakla sa salita eh. Parang bibilogin yung utak ng tao.
They, and these were mostly teenage boys, some of whom were transitioning to be women.
Meron ako doon nakasama, 17 years old lang. 17, 18, 19, tapos ang pinakamatanda sa amin, which is 30.
That's the age bracket that normally that we were able to arrest in extortion because they know a lot about computers.
You can just pay these jobless teenagers, give them 300 to 500 a day, and it will suffice for them. You can easily lure them, attract them to this kind of sex activities.
Good chatters would get bonuses and extra rewards. She'd shower them with gifts like iPhones and Samsung phones.
All the arrested individuals were minors.
Siyempre sa isang bahay kami na parang liblib. Kahit sabihin man liblib yun sa bundok yun, dun sa NHB.
The surrounding is much safe for them because there are inadequate police authorities who operate in the area.
North Hills still looks like a very ordinary village. But somebody pointed out to me, have you noticed what's different about this village? And I said, well, I can't. It looks like another Filipino village to me. But they said, look at the kids. They're all wearing designer T-shirts. You don't get that in a normal Philippine village. She owned a large property in the center of the village. It was like an entertainment center for the mostly young people who would work for her. And when we were there was always crowds of kids sort of gathering around them. And of course, those are the demographic that would be working for her or being primed to work for her as soon as they were a little older.
Pangunahin, tao dun, poor, ganun. Yung unang kinabubuhay dun sa NHB, which is yung paggawa ng basahan at pagbebenta ng basahan. Nagtatrabaho kay Kaparas doon na sabihin natin nasa 80% nakatao.
Walang nagsusumbong doon kay Kaparas kasi, sa NHB kasi halos lahat, buong NHB yon, lahat ayun yung trabaho. Lahat sila, scam yung trabaho. Pag lahat ng makita mo doon bahay na malaki, all in yun. Si Kaparas kasi, powerful kasi nga siya yung unang gumawa ng trabahong scam, which is siya yung nagbigay ng trabaho sa mga tao, siya yung unang yumaman, siya yung unang nakapagpagawa ng business.
Sa atin, tatanong ako anong requirements sa loob. Anong transaction madala? Padala. Kasi kung kay Kaparas na Western Union, yung kay Kaparas na Western Union, wala po dito yan. Wala po rito.
If you ask anybody about Maria Kaparas, they suddenly suffer from amnesia and are reluctant to talk about it. One shopkeeper who lives near her house says, everybody knows about what's going on, but nobody will talk to you about it. People are terrified to talk about what's going on. Not only terrified, but probably invested as well, because everybody has a son or a daughter or a brother or a sister somehow involved in one side of the scam or the other.
Mabait naman, maayos naman makisama. Miss Gay event na siya yung siya yung nag-set up ng event na yun. Siya yung halos lahat gumastos. Doon ko narinig sa mga tao na, ay, si Miss C yung nag-ano niyan, ganyan. Siya yung sumagot niyan, siya yung nagpa-Miss Gay niyan. Kaya sabi ko, oo nga, mabait naman siguro talaga.
With money, you can literally buy people, and that's technically what she was doing. Maria Capras came from an extremely poor background. She was living in the slums in Manila. When she first arrived in the village, the neighbours told me she was so poor she'd have to beg for a bowl of rice to feed her and her 2 children. She had nothing at all. She's a slumdog millionairess, effectively. She's come from nothing and become extremely rich in an extremely dark way.
I got a random Facebook request one night, what looked like an attractive female. At first I was resistant because I didn't know this person at all. At the time I didn't think nothing of it, like I said, so we started chatting. The second that we got onto the webcam, this person was already removing their clothing. I did not anticipate this. It wasn't that kind of conversation prior to that. I just thought they wanted to talk. They started removing their clothing, started doing some vulgar things with toys and stuff like that. And then started asking me to remove my clothing. I was resistant for a long time, for maybe about 15 minutes. I didn't really know this person. I didn't want to do that. I'm not really into that whole thing either, you know what I mean? But eventually I did. And I showed them my private area. This person proceeded to stop the video chat, and the screen went completely blank. And once that happened, I kind of realized something wasn't right.
Through Facebook, ayun, doon mo siya kakausapin. Tapos once na nakausap mo na siya, nagustuhan ka niya, pakiramdaman ko na sumasakay na siya sa akin, doon na pumasok yung plano ko na ito nga, parang sasakay ito sa akin, ganyan. Tapos nung sumakay na nga, which is sabi ko, start na kami, lumipat naman ako sa Skype para mag-video call.
I saw Maria Capras in prison, and she explained to me actually how it all works. She says that within 20 minutes, the chat gets so intimate.
Inakit ko na siya, nasabi ko na nakahubad ako, galing ako ng CR, kung gusto mo ba akong makita. Sige, magpapakita ko, basta once na magpakita ka din.
May application kasi kami na kapag inad mo yung video na gamit namin, automatic, kapag nakapag-video call ka, ayun yung lalabas na na video. Ayun yung makikita nila. Ayun, kinukuha yun sa mga porn site.
There are pre-recorded videos, controlled by key points.
Kasi yung iba kasi syempre magtataka yan eh. If you are not video, wave your hands. May wave yun. I-click mo lang kunyari. Yung wave niya nasa 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I-click mo siya sa 2 minutes. Para wave siya agad, ganon.
Yung galaw niya, pinag-aralan ko like yung mag-high siya, pagkaway sa camera. Tapos yung mga pag-flying kiss, yun, alam ko yun. Tapos like yung sa dildo, dapat kabisadoy mo talaga lahat. Kung ano yung gustong ipagawa ng foreigner din.
Combination of keys to have that pre-recorded video play as if you are really doing it for him.
Which is yung mag-show doon, hindi mismo ako, ibang tao. Tapos once na nauto ko na siya na yun na nga na nakapag-show na ako, tapos sasabihin ko sa kanya na mag-show din siya, gusto ko siya makita. Ayan, doon namin i-start yung pagre-record ng video niya. After nun, i-record namin yun. Pag-record namin doon, kukunin namin yung mga information na like Facebook. Kukunin namin doon yung mga pangalan ng mga kamag-anak, pinsan, mga ganun, kapamilya, or mga pamilya niya. Like asawa, anak, lolo't lola, or mga pinsan, ganun.
Well, they don't need to be IT expert or hackers. Because all this private information is already shared in your social media platform. For example, if you have a working experience somewhere, you already entered which locations you work, which company you work. They don't want only you be a target, because all those friends, all those members which they are in your social media, okay, it can be a valuable target to them.
Tapos after nun, doon na papasok lahat ng information na hawak namin, together with the video, nandoon. Tapos, doon namin sasabihin na kung free ka ba na pwede mag-show ulit tayong dalawa. Once na nag-show ulit siya, doon na namin ipapasa yung video niya na nag-show din. Sasabihin na namin na may hawak akong video, ganyan-ganyan. Kung magkano yung hingin namin, dapat may bigay niya para lang ma-delete yung video. Kung hindi, ipo-forward namin sa lahat ng kamag-anak, pinsan, kaibigan, yung video niya.
And if you can record something and you can play it over again, then the traumatization just happens each time you see it.
Once na nagbibigay pa siya ng pera, hindi ko siya titigilan.
Malaki din naman kapag nakakuha ka ng mayaman na client. Tsaka yung takot na takot. Sa isang araw na mag-online ka, makaka5 o 10 video. Kaya sa 10 video na yun na i-scam mo, natatakutin mo, imposibleng wala ka makuha dun isa. Usually yung iba kasi na nagmamakaawa na walang pera, ganon-ganon. Siyempre, tatakutin mo yung takot na takot talaga yung yung pipilitan lang namin sell your things. Sell your ganon. Appliances, yung iba talaga nagbebenta.
When you are threatened that these things will be released publicly, you literally panic, right? And you get very upset. And many of these young people become very anxious, very depressed.
Kaya doon po papasok yung pagsusuicide kasi nga wala na maibigay. Halos mangutang na sa mga kapitbahay niya or pinsan, kapamilya, yung taong binablackmail ko.
Pero may iba kasing client na tinigilan mo na, hindi mo na kasi kinaawa ka, kinabukasan, biglang magsasend sa'yo na na I know you can do this to me. Ganun, yung matapang pa sa'yo. Doon ako napipiko na, okay, this is your wife. I send your Doon ko sinasend yung video na mismo sa wife niya kahit wala akong makuha pera sa kanya. Actually, yung iba magsusumbong daw sa pulis. Hindi naman ako natakot.
Sa tingin ko mga 30. Di nga lang 30. No, isang, kumbaga sa lamesa, 4 or 5 kami nandiyan dyan na laptop. Kakasama kami dyan, kami yung ano, yan, sabay-sabayan kami nag-ano dyan, nakikipag-usap ng kumukuha ng bibiktimahin. Palitan ng oras, bibigyan nyo sa isang tao, may 6 hours ka para maghanap ng ano mo, ng bibidyoan mo. Ano lang, yung average time kasi na ano yun sa isang tao, yun sa oras kasi napakadali lang, 30 minutes kaya mong gawin yun eh. Na mapashow mo agad siya eh. Focus muna sa isa, pero may makaano ka na, kasi marami kang kausap eh. Parang nandyan lang sila, nakaantabay lang sila, ganun. Tapos after yung isa, yan, di ba na-videoan ko na, save ko lang muna yan, tapos kukuha pa ako ng kukuha ng iba. Siguro mga 6, 7, ganun. Mataas na yung 10. Yung iba nga, maabot pa ng 15, 20. Habang binablockmail ko siya, tapos nakapagpadala na siya, may tao na isa na magkiklaim ng pera, tapos pag na-claim na yung pera, sasabihin sa akin, for example, through tawag or text, chat, sasabihin na nakuha na yung pera, hingan ko ulit ng pera. Yun, doon ko ulit siya hingan ng pera.
While she had the teams of young people running the sextortion racket, she had another team of people helping her produce fake ID cards with which she or her lieutenants would go and collect the money from the Western Union branches.
Napapadala yung pera through fake ID.
The way it worked is that to collect these transfers, you just need an ID card that matches the name on the transfer from overseas. And in parallel to her sextortion business, it appears that Maria Caparas had a cottage industry producing fake ID cards.
Dahil sa blackmail, nakapagpatayo nga siya ng bahay, gano'n. Tapos nakapag-branch siya ng sariling Western Union para lang dun na kumuha ng pera yung mga tao niya.
From a money shop that is part of the syndicate is much easier than withdrawing the money from a money shop that is not owned or part of the syndicate. So the syndicate can manipulate the transaction and the release of money, but when you trace the money, details about the ID, it's all fictitious.
It's a fake ID.
It's a fake ID, definitely.
So, for the last decade or so, we've been focusing on making the world more open and connected. And we're not done with this yet. We're always going to do this. But I used to think that if we just gave people a voice and helped some people connect, that would make the world a lot better all by itself. And in a lot of ways, it has.
It's probably the tip of the iceberg, yes. We find that about 50 to 60% of the scammers do most of their scamming on Facebook. Facebook is a perfect platform for the scammers because everything they need is in the one place. They're able to meet the people there, they're able to do video chat with them there. They have their life there, their photographs, the list of their friends and their family. So it's just all encapsulated in the one place for them. I'd say we get around 500 reports a month, which is about 15 a day. When we originally started doing this, we were getting around 40% of people coming to us saying that the scam was from the Philippines. Today, we get around 55 to 60% of them will come from the Philippines.
The number one requirement for a person to involve him or herself in a sextortion is the internet. So it can be anywhere in the Philippines. There is no really specific location.
They just need a very basic things, okay? Definitely they need some device.
Bulacan kasi, province eh. Ang gamit lang talaga nila na internet is pocket wifi. Hindi sila, wala pa siyang ano doon. Wala pang wired doon na PLDT, lahat wala doon. Ano lang, ang gamit lang nila doon, SIM card lang.
These syndicates can be anywhere. Okay, they don't need to be in the certain location to find the victim in that particular location. They can sit anywhere, and the victim can be far, far away.
There is a continuous increase of the numbers of recorded sextortion cases. You could see from the statistic that there is an increase of 100% per year.
Thanks,
80% of our recorded sextortion cases uses social media. There's a huge difference in investigating a traditional crime, like a simple robbery, a case of homicide, or a case of murder. There is a gap. There's a huge gap on the procedure of how you will investigate cybercrime. The people do not know, they do not understand that we cannot just hack into someone's system and determine who is the person behind those who is victimizing them. Another thing, the social media administrators, they're outside the Philippines. They're not here. Not days, not weeks. It took months, several months for us to acquire the information that we sought. No, we need a lot of information to be able to identify who's the people behind the cybercrime.
So how do we know who we are in reality talking to? We are not able to verify that identity in a way like we have that possibility in a physical world. There's no need for verification due to the fact that social media priority is users' adoption. They want more users on their platform. We do not have a worldwide legislation that can cover those cybercrimes, and criminals know that. In some countries, they do not even need to hide because they know that no one will come and search for them.
Siya yung unang taong nakapag-ipon ng maraming pera, kaya ayun, nagkaroon siya ng syempre, nagkaroon siya ng kapit, ng hawak na pulis. Siguro kada monthly, binibigyan ng lagay, ganon, para hindi sila mahuli.
Alam ko ilang beses na din kasi nandun ako, nahuli sila, tapos nakakalabas din. Ganon. Pag once na may nagsabi na may hulihan, may surveillance ba or may huli ba, kung iniimbestiga na ba kayo, malalaman mo na.
Kapag nagkahulihan kasi, kapag may media, kukuha na lang na kinulong, pero kapag wala nang media, ayun na, pera lang, labas ulit siya. Kaya labas-pasok siya kasi, binibigyan lang niya ng pera, binabayaran niya. Yung sabi-sabi kasi na yun na naririnig ko sa kapitbahay, meron daw na na kalaguyo nga na pulis din, alam ko kasi pulis din daw na ayun yung pumaprotekta. Talaga nagtanong kayo ng pulis? Sira ulo kayo.
Oo, sa kinakabahan tuloy ko.
Kayo, sira ulo kayo, kakilala kami doon.
Hindi ba yun? Makita yung mukha na.
Oo, kilala kami doon kasi sa NHB, kilala lahat ng tao doon kasi hindi ka pwedeng pumasok doon ng lahat ng trabaho eh.
Maria Caparas was quite brazen about the way she operated. She also posted pictures of her 13-year-old son lying down covered in 1,000 peso notes and lots of other quite overt pictures. She was very open about the money they were making, celebrating Christmas and wearing T-shirts with her name on it, calling them the All Stars North Hills Village, and with a logo printed on the back showing a thumb with a cross, which is the sign you get if you're blocked on Facebook, and saying, "We hate this." I don't think she personally sees any reason to stop as long as she can continue getting away with it, and all the signs are that she's going to carry on getting away with it. She's the queen of sextortion, and North Hills Village is her fiefdom, her kingdom, if you like.
Who doesn't like a book? But inside, you've got a gecko. It doesn't set off any metal detectors. This is an example of how tortoises are frequently smuggled, and they're all taped to prevent them from moving.
I think this is illegal way they are coming in.
Illegal traders themselves have got very savvy. They are selling their products through cyberspace.
Carousel, yeah. Okay, like I took a picture of the snake just now, yeah. Just put in the caption, very rare species. Good deal, no hassle, don't need license, and that's it. And not die, good, you buy back some more from me.
Untuk makluman semua, satu ketika dulu hutan kita hampir melebihi 80%. Muka bumi di sepanjang Malaysia ni ditutupi oleh hutan. Jadi pada masa tersebut, hutan liar hidup dengan bebas lah. Bila masuk tahun 60-an, 70-an, 80-an, di mana pembangunan betul-betul bangun untuk rakyat. Jadi banyak kawasan-kawasan hutan ini telah dibuka bagi tujuan kebanyakannya untuk pembangunan, perumahan seperti perumahan dan juga pertanian. Jadi benda ini berlaku begitu cepat dan pada hari ini kawasan habitat di depan ini telah kurang pada 50% lah, 6%.
There was a huge boom in social media where wildlife trade was concerned. We started seeing an increase in the number of people that were actively participating on social media forums. They were interested in buying and selling animals. They were interested in asking about animals. They wanted to know prices. And we realized that it was really becoming quite popular. We identified 14 Facebook groups, and we spent 30 minutes a day, just 30 minutes a day, to figure out just what level of activity was taking place on these 14 Facebook groups. More than 300 animals were being offered for sale. And we can say that they were being offered for sale because prices were mentioned. Prices were specifically mentioned in at least 30 posts. And for just these 30 animals, the cumulative value was about 184,000 ringgit at that time. I think this really boils down to a demand and supply issue. As long as there is going to be a demand, the supply will consistently be there.
The wildlife department has got its hands full. We have been doing the best we can in trying to curb this illegal trade.
Semua orang kasih kumpul satu tempat.
But now the illegal traders themselves have got very savvy. They have gone into cyber space and they are selling their products through cyberspace. And of course, with the invent of Facebook and advertisement on internet, they are allowed to spread the information, and there are always, when there are buyers, there will be people who will break the law in order to try and gain profit by selling these animal parts and species that are quite precious to us.
It's really quite sad because you hear a baby crying. And somebody's obviously sort of videoing this whole experience. The box arrives, the box is opened, this little baby in the box is just wailing. All you hear is a wail. It's about a baby animal that is stolen from the wild. It doesn't belong in a box. It doesn't belong in a small box. It would have been shipped by post. It had no right to be in that position.
You see, the problem is there'll be a lot of rich guy or what say, I fancy this clouded leopard or something like that. What will get around like, okay, this person wants this. You'll be surprised that most of these animals are owned by rich people. Not the poor will not be able to afford because they are all in thousands and all that. You know?
When you look at history, it was the rich and famous and the royalty that used to showcase their animals. And it was always linked with prestige, status, and being somebody. If I can show that I own this animal, then I become now a person of prestige, status, acquisition is part of my wealth, part of my trophying right now. The royalties and the kings and queens would then feature these animals because everybody was curious to see these animals. It's probably one of the early precursors of zoos, and they used to feature these animals. And people used to come and watch and observe these animals. And people have this process where they actually show these animals to their friends and they publicize. In the social media world, it means I'm going to get more likes. Especially if you have a cute, fuzzy little animal that everybody is very excited about, you're going to get a lot of your friends coming round to your page, liking it, and it goes viral. This is one of the ways that people are making themselves more famous by linking themselves up to exotic animals.
To the buyer, that somehow is appealing, and that gets posted online. It gets a lot of likes, it gets a lot of comments. Of course, there are a lot of angry people who say, look, this is not right. But clearly that's not what matters to the buyer.
Because as a pet enthusiast, a hobbyist, okay, we always try to get something different, special. The interest that sparks us to like, I want this, I want that. I had 2 pet shops. Then eventually I was doing some exhibitions and all that around Malaysia. I've owned numerous pets, so I mean, I have regretted selling some. They did a head count. They said there's probably only not more than 700 or so heads left in China and Vietnam. This is where this lizard comes from. Like, this is very sought after in the European countries or in the States. Eventually, most of the hobbies, they will go something higher end. They want something more rare because it will look cool in the exotic community. When I was younger, of course, also we jumped to it, just the excitement of being able to get one. But as you grow up on this hobby, then you will realize that it's actually disheartening to see the animal just dying like that. You know that if you know the know-how, you have the husbandry, then the animal could survive. But most of the traders are just interested in making money. They always want to sell just to make a quick buck, and that's it. And I die, good, you buy back some more from me.
Kita tengok dalam masa tahun 2012, 13, benda ni semakin menjadi-jadi. Dan banyak hidupan liar yang terancam ke, yang sangat terancam ke, dia membuat urusan jual beli di dalam talian.
Dia punya modus operandi adalah mudah aja. Kebanyakannya dia akan letakkan, upload dekat sama ada Facebook atau Instagram. Kebanyakan daripada profil yang ada adalah umur antara 20-an sehingga ke 45 macam itulah. So, ini adalah individu yang biasa menggunakan internet, ada Facebook, ada Insta.
Social media and online platforms obviously made it really easy. Because now, by using this technology, they can easily target the mass market. They can publish a product and everybody can get to know it in a split of second.
Dia ada 30 kumpulan yang berkaitan dengan penjualan hidupan liar ni. So dia ada grup dia. Cumanya dia dalam grup dia tu ada yang close. Dia sesama ahli kumpulan saja yang menjual ataupun yang mengiklankan hidupan liar tersebut. Kebanyakannya yang upload status tu adalah dia sebagai dropship. Dan apabila ada individu yang berminat, dia akan direct message kepada penjual tersebut. So selalunya akan berlaku apabila ada persetujuan, individu pembeli itu akan membayar secara online ataupun bank in kepada individu yang melakukan dropship tadi ni. Hidupan liar ini akan dihantar sama ada melalui pos ataupun bas.
Pembeli sendiri akan mengambil hidupan liar tersebut di mana-mana perintilan bas ataupun mana-mana tempat yang telah dijanjikan. Dan seterusnya dia perlu mengambil gambar dan serah pada broker. So broker yang akan menghantar maklumat balik, okey, barang telah diserahkan dan baru dimasukkan duit pada supplier.
Akta yang ada hanya apabila dia memiliki hidupan liar tersebut. Kita mungkin boleh tangkap ataupun dapat hidupan liar tersebut, tetapi orang ataupun individu yang post hidupan liar tersebut ataupun melakukan urus niaga tersebut, penjual tu kita tidak dapat tangkap.
So sekarang ni supplier memang takkan ada kena-mengena, broker pun sebenarnya dia takkan berjumpa supplier. Kita pernah juga buat penahanan broker yang kita cuba minta dia sendiri yang hantarkan. Tapi in the end, kita still tak dapat dia punya supplier sebab dia sendiri pun tak pernah berjumpa dengan supplier dia. Dia menguruskan saja.
The account on his side probably is fake ones. I mean, not his name. Probably they use a foreigner or something like that.
Posting di media sosial boleh dipadam pada bila-bila masa. Dalam masa sama juga, agak susah untuk kita sebagai yang kata bagi pasukan untuk penguasaan untuk melakukan tindakan selanjutnya kerana diorang tidak meletakkan apa-apa detail yang berkenaan dengan pembeli ni. Dia punya detail dia agak kurang.
Selalunya dia akan menggunakan sama ada akaun palsu ataupun gambar profil lainlah, bukan gambar dia. Dan kebanyakannya apabila berlaku katalah pilihan tahu profil itu, dia akan tubuhkan satu profil barulah, ataupun satu nama baru ataupun satu kumpulan baru. Jadi ini menyukarkan kita lah. Apabila berlaku pertukaran grup dan sebagainya, jadi kita kena monitor dari awal balik. Dan lebih daripada 10,000 akaun ataupun yang aktif berkenaan dengan penjualan ataupun berinteraksi di dalam online untuk penjualan hidupan liar.
All these platforms, right, they do have a term and conditions. It's said in the term and condition which you can't have any illegal activities. Okay, so this is very clear to the public. However, obviously, these people, they misuse the platform. And in the same time, you can communicate with them. And all these platforms provide a facility to have a secure and private chat. Okay, and that makes it more difficult for investigators to have access to these chats and identify the right persons who is behind this animal trafficking. For instance, by using encryption, you can easily make a private chat. And as you know, it's impossible to break the encryption. The biggest challenges is data privacy and how the platforms makes the data or makes the communication private.
Everybody's operating under the cover of behind the computers on their phone. It's not always easy to identify where these individuals are.
I'm studied business from 2008. I have some big size albino iguana. Yeah, it's very tame. Next one, I recommend monkeys. It's marmosets, white ear marmosets. This is Egyptian fox. This is from Sudan. This is albino tegu. I do all the legal way. I get my license from Perhilitan. This is my import document. So export, import, or we throw here. This is my every bill. You see how many every bill? It's a lot. This is a lot of paperwork. Feeding cost per month 3,000 to 5,000, and for 1 year my import and export other charges is around 40,000 to 50,000 ringgit. Feed like 10,000 ringgit or below 10,000 or 15,000. Each reptiles and each animals, they need the microchips. Microchip we pay about 10 to 15 ringgit for each animal. We have to pay the box charges and handling fees. It's about 2,000 to 3,000 US dollar. Ini yang itu otter.
Is this illegal or?
Illegal, of course. Longkang, yung burung hantu, owl. This owl, I think is a white face. It's no mistake.
Which one is legal and illegal?
No legal.
No legal.
No legal.
All
All the owl, no legal. Longkang, slow loris, no legal. Otter, no legal. All of this illegal. As a leopard cat, dusky-lipped monkey, not suitable to keep. You see, all the people they are catch and they are try to make money. I think this is illegal way they are coming in.
How are the usual illegal ways that they come in that you know of?
The first thing is, if a legal way, they have a proper box for the shipping. Because this is, we can't see anything inside, so we don't know the inside is what animal is it. So this is, I'm sure, the illegal they are doing.
Carousel, yeah. Okay, like I took a picture of the snake just now, yeah. Just put in the caption, snake for sale. You can just put something to attract people, like very rare species, good for beginners. You can say good deal, no hassle, don't need license, something like that. Then it's easy. Then you get people who wants exotic pets or what, they will go through it. Probably by tomorrow or so, somebody might just pick it up or anything like that. Now in a way it's easy because you don't need a shop. You won't get busted. So you can do a lot of fake accounts and all that. There's a lot of ways you can escape the law. The seller requires that you have 3 heads, 4 heads before he comes. Normally the trappers are based away from the city, so for the seller it must be feasible for him to travel there to collect. For example, a monkey for maybe 100 ringgit, he will probably be selling to the buyer, the potential buyer, at about 2,000 or 3,000. For 100 ringgit product, he can make so much. See, that's why he will take the risk, because it's like more than tenfold of the profits.
And for some of the illegal trade, they're really pretty expensive. The value is equivalent to a down payment for a small house in Malaysia. So we're not talking about 10 ringgit or 20 ringgit, we're really talking about hundreds and thousands of ringgit.
The Malayan tiger is very specific in the sense that it's only found in Peninsular Malaya. We are putting a large effort in order to conserve the tigers in Malaya. We only have about less than 200 of them. But tiger parts now is a worldwide market. And people come in here just looking for tigers in order to put the snares and catch them. Because one tiger can be sold for anywhere between 150,000 US to 200,000 US. And every part of the tiger is used in order to sell and make profit. So there are people in our jungles who have come from Vietnam, who have come from Cambodia and Laos, and including locals who are hunting them.
The total of confiscated ivories consists of 3,692 kilograms of whole and partial tusks and 228 kilograms of semi-finished products.
This tusk is heavy. Of course, these are beads made of the tusk, not that very heavy, but these tusks are heavy. This is machine cut.
Yang border trade ni dia sedikit, kebanyakannya dia sedikit. Jadi dia punya rangkaian tu lebih luas. Dan apa yang di sudut ni, dia tak semestinya hidupan liar atau wildlife. Kadang-kadang dia bersekali dengan dadah, bersekali dengan senjata api ataupun bersekali dengan benda-benda yang terlarang.
Contohnya gading gajah, sumbu badak yang ada nilai tinggi. Contohnya gading gajah. So selalunya gading gajah ni dia daripada Afrika lah. Sama ada gading yang sebatang ataupun yang telah diukir dan sebagainya ataupun telah dipotong-potong. So dibawa masuk ke ditransit, bukan untuk kegunaan Malaysia tapi sebagai transit untuk dihantar semula selalunya ke China lah. Jadi ini adalah yang bernilai tinggi lah, dan dia ada sindiket yang terancang, sama ada dikontrol oleh di Afrika dan juga di negara-negara lain, yang menyebabkan barang ini ataupun gading ini dia melalui pelabuhan Malaysia dan dia dihantar.
Most people were actually able to find everything, so we have to do a better job of hiding stuff.
Yeah, maybe create more secret pockets inside. So what we're going to show you is how smugglers commonly smuggle things on their persons. Most common when they are traveling by air. For example, this is an egg vest. People have been caught trying to smuggle eggs on themselves. Sometimes it's on their body, sometimes it's strapped on their legs. Keeps them nice and warm and doesn't set off any metal detectors, so everything goes through quite smoothly. Sometimes you also have these specially modified vests or jackets, and here, fake of course, ivory. Additional pockets. You can carry pretty much anything as long as it is not metal. It doesn't set off metal detectors. And if you add more clothes, you get a little bit puffy. You don't set any alarm bells off. And this is an example of how tortoises are frequently smuggled, and they're all taped to prevent them from moving. Every single one of them are alive because it's for the pet trade. Another example, birds in a bottle, and if you go online and Google, you'll find many, many pictures of birds being smuggled like this. You've got holes to let them breathe, but one of the easiest and fastest ways to smuggle birds.
And the great book with a surprise in it.
Who doesn't like a book? But inside, you've got a gecko. And these are all actual examples of how smugglers have been arrested. We are seeing a lot of our native animals being exported for sale elsewhere in the world. We are also seeing non-native animals coming into the country. And so you've got these dynamics as a source and as a consumer, as well as a transit country for things that aren't really targeted to local demand. We're not saying that this is a problem here in Malaysia. This is a global problem.
Most hunters go out at night or early hours in the morning. Definitely they have machetes and homemade guns. Mostly 2 or 3%, because if you get a big animal you cannot handle alone, you cannot carry it alone. Poachers, there's two types. I mean, for poachers it's either for food or for the pet. Everything is worth money. Any wildlife can be sold.
We found baby gibbons, we found baby sun bears. It's really quite shocking. They were animals that were considered totally protected under the Wildlife Conservation Act of Peninsular Malaysia. A number of these individuals are actually offering animals that you cannot sell. The more worrying question is, how on earth did these individuals get these animals? A vast majority of them were native animals, which means people were going into the forest, they were trapping them, And what's really surprising, even more shocking about this, was that almost all of them were juvenile animals. And particularly for mammals, it's a pretty serious problem. When you take a baby away from its mother, from its family, you don't know how long they will survive. Their own support system in the wild has been essentially taken away.
Ini anak lotong kan. Ni anak lotong ni confirm mak dia mati dah. Mak dia mati dah ni, tak ada dah. Itu sebab dapat anak ni. Nampak tak? Bunyi ni stres, dia stres. Dia nak mak ni. Dia nak suckle, dia nak menyusu.
Hidupan liar yang dari segi juvenile ni kebanyakannya adalah comel. Sebahagian daripada keluarga dia. Maknanya dari segi ke setengah tu diletakkan pakaian, dia bagi makanan yang dimakan oleh manusia.
Encik nak kau ada ke? Cik nak kau ada ke? Dah. Jom. Dah lapar, ha? Kita tahu dia dengan mak dia akan sentiasa sampai setahun ke 2 tahun baru dia akan belajar berdikari sendiri. Tapi bila yang beli anak-anak macam ni, kecil lagi dia dah dipisahkan dengan mak dia. Stress factor benda-benda macam tu akan menyebabkan risiko penyakit tu tinggi. Dan dari segi dia punya behavior dia akan berubahlah daripada normal kepada tak normal. Tu yang akan efek dia punya jangka masa panjang dia lah. Kita ada kes yang orang beli kan. So dia beli, tapi and then dia buat serahan. Cumanya owner dia dah jaga dia dalam satu tempoh masa lah, mungkin 6 bulan. So dia tak nak langsung dekat orang lain selain owner dia. So disebabkan benda tu suka nak jaga. So dari situ ada stress factor, dia kena penyakit lah. And then kita start untuk bagi rawatan, tapi dia tak respon dengan rawatan. So mati. So heartbreaking lah sebenarnya. Kita buat semua benda, tapi still kat hujungnya kadang-kadang tak boleh nak survive. Sayanglah. Sayang.
They had no respect for protecting species in the wild. They had no respect for law enforcement in the authorities. It was a crime, pure and simple, because they knew for a fact that they were offering animals that they were not supposed to offer for sale.
Warrior snail ni sama ada mati ataupun kalau dia survive pun kaki dia putus. Dan dari segi jerat pula, kita dalam masa 5 tahun juga kita telah memusnahkan lebih daripada 2,000-3,000 jerat. Maksud saya sini jerat adalah jerat dawan.
Kalau dia menggunakan jerat di lapangan, di hutan, bukan saja hidupan liar yang dia target itu dapat, tapi juga dia akan melibatkan hidupan liar lain, harimau, gajah dan sebagainya, tapir dan sebagainya yang boleh membunuh hidupan liar tersebut dan boleh mengakibatkan kepupusan secara setempatlah, locally extinct.
Kita di Jabatan Perintah ni kita ada Wildlife Rescue Center yang berpusat di Sungai, di mana hidupan-hidupan liar yang dirampas ataupun yang cedera kita akan hantar ke sana. Kita ubat, pulihkan dia, kita akan simpan lah sampai mati lah, kita akan simpan bagi makan.
Nah, Stacy. Hai.
Kita ada lebih 300 individu di mana termasuk primate, termasuk juga mamalia besar dan juga burung-burung. So ada juga rawatan lain seperti tapir, yang masuk ke sini mana kena kesan jerat. Sekarang kita berada di kompleks Burang. Ini memang saya dan pasukan saya involve secara directly. Kerana kita berurusan dengan penjual. Kita melalui asalnya dia bermula dengan promosi pada online. So dia jual cadangnya dia mula nak kata dia jual di Burang Matahari lah. Semasa kita buat urusan jual beli, saya terima beruang ni dalam keadaan yang sangat kecil di mana masih baby dan bulu dia pun baru masih sikit. Maknanya body dia tu masih merah lagi. Kat situ kita tak nampak dari segi kebajikan, mana dia bagi susu ataupun bagi apa-apa sumber. Dan saya juga pasti ibu dia telah dibunuh untuk dapatkan beruang ni. Masa-masa kita poleh beruang ni, dan kita dapati ini bukan beruang Malaysia dan ini adalah beruang luar negara, di mana kita sebagai pembeli tak sedar yang kita membeli ni juga bukan sekadar hidupan liar yang di Malaysia. Kita juga telah mengambil ada hazanah dari negara lain. Kebanyakan pembeli ni adalah, kita tahu dia adalah antara pencinta hidupan liar, pencinta haiwan. Dan hidupan liar yang dia beli, kebanyakan pembeli kurang pengetahuan berkenaan dengan hidupan liar yang dia beli.
Nampak comel kan kucing batu ni? Memang comel lah. Tapi bila dah besar sikit, dia mula dah agresif lah. Bila agresif sangat, orang akan lepas kat luar lah. Ataupun orang salah dekat peritan. Sebab kita jumpa. Sebab India nanti kebanyakan bila ada masalah, diorang akan hantar ke perhilitan tau. Sebab diorang tak dapat nak handle, tak dapat nak jaga. So masa tu diorang cakap, benda ni serahan, apa semua. Mungkin diorang sebenarnya menyimpan secara tidak sah.
World Wildlife Day, I'm declaring war against the poachers. The time has come to stop the killing of the Malayan tigers and the other wildlife by these ruthless poachers.
We have continuous programs whereby a special committee has been set up, and whatever information that we have that we pick up, and our cybercrime unit, whereby they know how goods are being transferred from one area to another, that is when we call in all these people who are involved. So we also have help from international agencies who have experiences in this, and they are also advising us.
Kita kena bekerjasama rapat dengan Interpol. Pasal maklumat tu memang selalunya Interpol yang bagi kat kita lengkap senarai apa yang hidupan liar ada. Kalau contohnya pelabuhan, kat pelabuhan mana, kontena yang mana, kapal yang mana, so dia berlabuh ke apa, bila. So itu maklumat yang komplit.
So kita akan membuat rondaan, boleh kata setiap hari lah. Pitan dengan sedaya upaya dengan juga kerjasama dengan agensi, sedaya upaya untuk mengatasi isu ni dengan melakukan banyak perkara. Kita buat kerjasama dengan tentera, dengan pihak polis, kita buat boots on the ground.
That will deter them from coming in and trying to poach our animals from the forest.
Selama ni kita cukup susah kita nak dakwa. Kita tak boleh nak dakwa kecuali orang tu ada memiliki, kita boleh dakwa. Tetapi dengan pimpinan akta kita ni, Kalau dia masuk dalam media sosial, kita boleh tahu itu yang terbaik lah. Dengan adanya benda ni, maka akan mengurangkan orang jual beli dalam media sosial.
We need to change these laws and to make it in line with what is happening today, and to make sure that the deterrent for those who break the law, the punishment is equally severe, and they won't attempt to do it. So these laws are in place, are being there, and I think by 2020 we would see a lot of amendments taking place as far as the ministry is concerned. So my message to them is, we are coming, be prepared, and we have given orders what to do, and if you're caught, you will pay heavily for the crime that you have committed.
Today, the Department of Justice announces the takedown of the dark web market Alpha Bay.
ตัวอาชญากรคนนี้เป็นผู้ต้องหาที่มีความชำนาญด้านเทคโนโลยีอันดับหนึ่งถือว่าเป็นเบอร์หนึ่งของด้านไซเบอร์ครามเลยครับ
เขามีบ้าน2 หลังติดกันเป็นทาวน์เฮาส์ตรงคำ2 หลังและกำลังซื้ออีกหลังหนึ่งรถทุกอย่างเขาจะใช้แบบเป็นซูเปอร์คาร์หมดทุกคันแต่ทำงานจริงๆจังเราไม่เห็น
The website was grossing close to $500 million per year, so we're talking about $300 to $500 million a year.
My name's Paul Craig. I'm the Chief Hacking Officer at Vantage Point Security. So imagine that you have a lot of something that is illegal and you want to sell it. You can't go onto Carousel and place a listing for your product that you want to sell. So the dark web's really filled that need. It's become a marketplace for where people can sell things that are illegal. So here we can get a diploma from almost any school for 0.1 of a Bitcoin, so $1,000, $1,100. Here we go, we can buy a UK passport with the name of your choice for 1,000 British pounds. Driver's license, ID cards, big sale. So do you want a driver's license from Norway or Denmark? A Lithuanian ID card. So what we're looking for, 1 gram of Colombian cocaine, 75% pure, uncut, $40 US. Right here on the front page. But we see that they've got some quite dangerous things available for sale here, because we've got weapons available. AK-47s, $500. This marketplace actually looks quite well designed. It's quite new looking. It actually looks quite legitimate. But this is all illegal.
So think of it as eBay without the auctions or Amazon Marketplace. It's exactly the same thing in spirit. The only difference is that because the site is anonymous, people are not shy about trading illicit goods.
Alphabet very much looked like a really simple cut-down e-commerce site. Very, very simple. Just had categories and lists of products and prices. You would click on the link of the product and you could see a photo and a brief little description. Top rated, great reviews, very strong, lab tested. And a lot of people had comments about how they secretly shipped their items. So it would be shipped in a CD case, or this would be hidden in a vase or something. Majority of listings on Alphabet were narcotic or drug related. There were like hundreds of pages of listings for different categories. You would see a lot of pictures of narcotics, guns, and things that are generally illegal.
Marketplaces like Alphabet are interesting in the sense that they bring the local drug dealer to the global scale. So if you think about it, the total drug market is huge. You're talking trillions of dollars. But your local drug dealer is not grossing a lot of money. The revenues are fairly small because you have to have this face-to-face interaction. There's also tons of risk associated with selling drugs on the street. And so those operations tend to be pretty small. But by moving them online, they take the Amazon model of electronic commerce and use it for illicit goods. So of course, it gives people a much larger pool of potential customers and a much larger outlet. You do not just deal with your 10 or 15 regular customers, you deal potentially with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of potential customers worldwide.
These websites don't have much content other than, here are my illegal goods for sale.
Technology will not only allow legitimate business to thrive, but will also allow criminals to use that technology in order to just have a better return on investment. It definitely is a bigger threat to the overall communities, and therefore it was a priority for the police to shut it down.
Good morning. Today, some of the most prolific drug suppliers use what's called the dark web, which is a collection of hidden websites that you can only access if you mask your identity and your location.
During the Alphabet investigation, one thing that became pretty clear was that the person who was in charge of the marketplace was somebody with the handle Alpha02. What was interesting with Alexander Casas is that he started his online career as essentially somebody who was selling illicitly obtained online credentials. He was perhaps coming from this hacker mentality, and he built his marketplace based on that. And this is somebody who was, technologically inclined. He liked to run websites, he liked to run an e-commerce platform, and he had a business, and his business was successful. And it's quite human nature. You have a business that is successful, that is something that you like to do. You perhaps turn very quickly a blind eye on what's going on in your business, or you don't really realize what you're doing. Some of them start the marketplaces due to, I would say, ideological reasons. They believe that government should not tell people what they can or cannot put in their bodies, and they want to provide an online platform to do that. But then, when the marketplace starts to work quite well, they realize that the money is rolling in. They basically just get a thrill of operating those markets, and that's essentially what leads them to their downfall.
ตอนเริ่มเลยสำหรับเมื่อได้ยินคำว่า Offer Bay เนี่ยเราคิดว่าเป็นการปิดเว็บไซต์ ผมนี่ไม่ได้คิดว่าไม่ได้เป็นการยากอะไรเลยแต่เพื่อนอเมริกันเนี่ยก็พยายามบอกช่วยพดรู้จักแมคโครไหมอะไรอย่างเงี้ยบอกรู้จักแมคโครใหญ่บอกถ้าบอกว่าถ้าแมคโครขายยาเสพติดแล้วถ้าใหญ่กว่าแมคโครสัก50 เท่าเนี่ยใหญ่ไหม
เจ้าหน้าที่ตำรวจที่สืบสวนเนี่ยถึงกับไม่เชื่อสายตาตัวเอง หรือว่าข้อมูลต่างๆที่เราแคปเจอร์ได้เนี่ยไม่น่าจะเป็นเรื่องจริงเลยว่ามันเกิดเรื่องเหล่านี้เกิดขึ้นอยู่ในโลกของเราอย่างเงี้ยครับการที่อาชญากรคนหนึ่งเนี่ยสามารถที่จะบริหารเว็บไซต์นะครับที่มีมูลค่าเป็นหลักหลายพันล้านนะครับมีการกระทำความผิดสูงที่สุดได้เนี่ยเขาจะต้องมีการบริหารจัดการที่ไม่ธรรมดา
พอเราเริ่มศึกษาแล้วดูว่าเว็บนี้มันผู้ที่เข้ามาใช้หรือมาติดต่อเป็นแสนคนถ้าเป็นยาเสพติดเนี่ยก็คือว่าหายากนะครับที่กลุ่มนักค้ายาเสพติดนี้มีกลุ่มนักค้ายาเสพติดถึงกลุ่มละ100,000 คนเนี่ยคือการปราบยาเสพติดเราเนี่ยผมอย่างผมทำเนี่ยผมก็ทำมา30 ปีแล้วแต่โอเปอเรชั่นอันนี้มันแปลกเพราะมันเกี่ยวกับเทคโนโลยีแต่จากการสืบสวนขยายผลมาเรื่อยรู้ว่าในที่สุดน่าจะอยู่เมืองไทยเราก็จึงเข้ามาสโคปใกล้ชิดแล้วก็สืบสวนใช้เวลาอยู่หลายเดือนอยู่กว่าจะรู้ว่าตัวเขาอยู่ประเทศไทย
He used an old Hotmail account, so of course it will lead to his history and to his additional digital footprint. He also used some other pseudonyms across different platforms, the same on the dark web as on the normal web and the visible web.
when you're running such a marketplace, there's also a risk that some of your previous actions will come back to haunt you at some point. So the point is that even before he even dreamed about running Alphabet, we are talking about something that took place almost a decade prior to his arrest. Some of those elements were used to actually be able to link different online personas with each other. And that's very important to remember.
Whatever is on the internet, it's on the internet forever. So if you use an identity somewhere, someday, it is there and might burst anytime with your information. Nothing that you have put there is completely deleted.
ที่เรารู้ขณะนี้ก็คือเขาน่าจะชื่ออเล็กซานเดอร์แคสแล้วก็เป็นคนแคนาดาหมายเลขพาสปอร์ตตัวนี้พอเราพบเราก็เจาะลึกไปเรื่อยๆครับเราก็เจอว่าเขามีภรรยาเป็นคนไทยเราก็ทำการสืบสวนเขาก็ไม่มีอะไรคือไม่ได้ทำอะไรเท่าไหร่แล้วก็สอบถามจากข้างเคียงหรือเก็บข้อมูลก็ทราบว่าเขาทำเกี่ยวกับคอมพิวเตอร์ใช่ไหมเราก็พยายามดูเขาทำคอมพิวเตอร์อะไรขายอะไรมีทรัพย์สินอะไรซึ่งเราดูว่าโอ้เขามีทรัพย์สินเยอะนะเขามีบ้าน2 หลังติดกันเป็นทาวน์เฮาส์ตรงคำ2 หลังแล้วกำลังซื้ออีกหลังหนึ่งซื้อแล้วก็กำลังตกแต่งเป็น100 ล้านอีกที่หนึ่งแล้วก็ไปเช่าอีกที่หนึ่งมีบ้านแล้วแต่ยังไปเช่าอีกที่หนึ่งเราก็เห็นว่าเขาใช้รถ Lamborghini นะ Aventador ซึ่งราคาแพงสุดก็หลาย30 ล้านเลยมั้งแล้วก็มี Porsche นะครับแล้วก็มี Mini Cooper แล้วส่วนมอเตอร์ไซค์ก็ใช้ Superbike BMW ซึ่งเป็นรถราคาสูงทั้งนั้นเลย
บางมื้อเนี่ยตัวนายอเล็กซานเดอร์แคสเนี่ยสามารถที่จะใช้เงินประมาณ1 ล้านหรือ1.5 ล้านบาทในการกินข้าว1 มื้อได้เขาสามารถที่จะใช้เงินซื้อได้ทุกอย่างและเขาก็ใช้ชีวิตที่หรูหราจริงๆ
ก็เป็นเรื่องปกติของมนุษย์ที่อยากจะโอ้อวดนะในสิ่งที่ตัวเองได้มาเร็วอะไรเงี้ยเพราะฉะนั้นในการโอ้อวดเนี่ยบางครั้งเองเนี่ยมันก็เป็นที่จับตาเหมือนกันว่าทำไมคุณรวยเร็ว
มีบ้านหลายหลังมีรถดีหลายคันไปโน่นเข้าโน่นออกนี่แต่ทำงานจริงๆจังเราไม่เห็นมันจะเป็นไปได้ยังไง
Many countries, even in Southeast Asia, they have a law that government can collect the data from the internet for protecting their national security. They call it lawful interception. Many countries in Europe, they can do. Many well-developed countries, Singapore, 100%. But in Thailand, we don't have such law. And many hackers in the world know that Thailand don't have such kind of the law to sniff or collect information from the internet, and they can think this is the heaven for them. Sony Picture case is a world-class big case. We are the source of the IP address that attacked Sony Picture. We found that we has been hacked by the foreign hacker. All the IP address of the attacker originate from university and the hotel in Bangkok. They compromise the server and they use that computer server to hack into the Sony Picture. We have many cases, not only Sony Picture. We have cases that we hack into the other government in Asia, in Europe, in the United States. They come to our country and they compromise, hack the server, and we call this attack attribution.
The Breaking Bad syndrome. So Breaking Bad is this very popular TV series, and you see the evolution of the character over the series to change from a very nice, upstanding citizen to an absolutely horrible criminal. Even more than money, there is kind of the thrill of doing this business and realizing how powerful you are. They get addicted to their own product. And that product is not drugs, it's the thrill of running an illicit website. Alphabet is an online anonymous marketplace that is running anonymously on the internet. Anonymous browsing works at a high level using the following principle. Instead of me talking directly to the website that I want to visit, I'm going to talk to an intermediary who is going to talk to an intermediary who is going to talk to an intermediary, and so forth.
It allows people to sell illegal products or illegal services without any fear of being caught, without any fear of being identified. You could be in any country in the world, and it would be quite challenging to prove that you were the one selling something on the dark web. First link would be download Tor. You can download Tor for free online. It's very simple, very straightforward to download and install, and within seconds you can be running the Tor browser. So on the typical internet, the general internet that people know, you'll see .com, .net, .org. On the Tor network, we only see the string of random characters .onion. So there's no even way to track the domain name. It's just a string of random characters. So you can quite clearly tell that is on the Tor network.
Originally, Tor was a byproduct of the Office for Naval Research to provide a mechanism for intelligence agents and spies to communicate back to the US government anonymously. Over time, the use cases have expanded.
So journalists would be a great example. Journalists researching a topic inside a country that might be considered politically sensitive, who need to be able to do things that might be censored by their government. So the Tor network by itself is really not that harmful. You can share information, it may be unregulated and uncontrolled, but there's no way of buying products or services through Tor itself directly. But when you add in cryptocurrency, which has the same level of anonymity and privacy, all of a sudden these two things together really do create the perfect storm. So you can list products and receive money for products, all anonymous.
When I was working on the sort of great project of my life back in 2013, and trying to figure out things like how could I get this archive of material to journalists? So how could they see things in a safe way that's uncontrolled? There's a question of, well, do I need server infrastructure of my own? Maybe the answer is yes. Okay, how do I pay for that anonymously? Maybe someone like me may have used Bitcoin for something like that.
This is 0.4 of a Bitcoin for a Dutch passport. That would be about 4,500 given today's rate of Bitcoin, which is about 10,000 for one Bitcoin. Yeah, we accept all cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrency is definitely the payment choice. So that is my Bitcoin wallet. And this gives me the QR code. If someone else wants to send me Bitcoin, they just scan this QR code, and then it goes to my Bitcoin address, and then the Bitcoin will come into my account. Bitcoin can be used for many legitimate things, many legitimate reasons. It just happens to also be the #1 choice for people selling things on the dark web. There's no way of tracking it. Or there's no way of tying a cryptocurrency wallet or address to a person. Traditionally, a lot of crime has been caught by busting the trail of money, because money always leaves quite a trail.
แต่สมมุติว่าเป็นเงินฝากตัวเขารู้แบงค์รู้หลายคนรู้สามารถตรวจสอบได้แต่ที่นี่คือตัวเขาเองเท่านั้น จะเห็นว่าการค้าเนี่ยมันเหมือนเป็น virtual มันไม่ใช่เป็น actual มันเป็น virtual ไม่ว่าการค้ายาเสพติดข้อมูลในไฟล์ต่างมันอยู่ในอากาศทั้งหมดเลย
So you can send millions of dollars to someone else on the other end of the world and receive goods in return without anyone in between actually seeing or knowing. The growth of cryptocurrencies, it's been very much pitched directly on the growth of the dark web and financial services on the dark web.
People have been selling drugs and other illicit goods on the web pretty much since the 1990s. So what was different with Silk Road? Well, what was different with Silk Road is that it tried to provide what I would call an end-to-end anonymity platform. It combines network anonymity through the use of Tor so that an observer cannot tell which machine is connecting to which server to do those transactions. You might have thought, well, the police has shown that they can arrest those people, and so you'd be foolish to enter this line of business because you're going to get caught. This is the exact opposite of what happened. People were convinced that there was demand from customers and that there was a viable business idea in there.
ผมคิดว่าอาชญากรรมคอมพิวเตอร์เนี่ยตัวที่อธิบายได้ชัดเจนที่สุดสำหรับไซเบอร์ครามเนี่ยตอนนี้น่าจะเป็นเรื่องดีมานด์ซัพพลายนะครับว่าดีมานด์คนในเรื่องของตลาดมืดเนี่ยมันมีเยอะ
Okay, so for this one, we need to register an account. You can see they use PGP authentication, so quite privacy focused. Let's see if we can find another marketplace. Okay, we need username and password for that one. I think the Alphabet was quite unique, that it was so quick and easy to get on board and to get in. Definitely contributed to its success.
Initially, it was not the largest website. It was a very small website. They were primarily selling credit cards and other digital goods.
So in 2015, Alphabet really got into the spotlight for selling stolen Uber and TalkTalk information. Now, this is just a great example of an illegal product, data in this case, being sold online. And I imagine very cheaply, because this information, there will be a lot of it, so people will be selling person by person a few dollars. But there are a lot of accounts that were being sold on Alphabet, not just things like Uber, also Netflix, Hulu. These are the things I think people would buy quite frequently. Because it's considered not so illegal, but something that they want.
But reasonably quickly, they became dominated by drugs. The first vendor on Alphabet was probably Alpha 02, selling credit card numbers he had access to. And then, as the business picked up and other vendors joined, he didn't, say no when people started to sell drugs. It's very interesting to ask yourself, how many people does it take to run a dark web marketplace? And the answer is surprisingly few in general. A lot of the people who start those marketplaces, they are not drug syndicates, they are not career criminals, they are people with a very strong IT background. This is really white-collar crime, which makes sense for the operator of the platform. After all, operating a website is an IT job. But what is interesting is that you see the same marketing techniques that are being used by legitimate businesses, social networks like Twitter, Reddit, and they have some quote-unquote social media consultants that are essentially promoting their brands on those social networks.
ส่วนมากอาชญากรทางด้านไซเบอร์เนี่ยจะมีอายุอยู่ประมาณ 18-25 ปี เพราะนั้นแรงจูงใจในเรื่องที่จะทำอะไรแผลงๆเนี่ยนะครับแล้วก็อาจจะไม่ค่อยกลัวในเรื่องกฎหมาย นะครับเป็นกล้าทดลองกล้าบ้าบิ่นเนี่ยมีเยอะ
You have a certain ego present within the community. The knowledge that the general public lacks understanding about cybersecurity, that makes some of the cybersecurity hackers thinking that they might have almost like superpowers and they are so good that no one will find them.
คือมันมีกลุ่มอาชญากรกลุ่มหนึ่งซึ่งเขาอาจจะมีความรู้สึกว่าเขาท้าทายนะครับอาจจะมีความรู้สึกว่าสนุกมันเป็นเกมอย่างหนึ่งนะครับอันนี้ใน criminal mind เนี่ยนะครับของคนกลุ่มหนึ่งพวกนี้มี
It's got to be a little bit exhilarating for those people. It's got to be something that provides a thrill, a high, so to speak, no pun intended.
In the particular case of Alphabet Marketplace and the reach and the amount of users that particular marketplace reached, probably the owner had a feeling of success, a feeling of being untouchable because he reached a certain level that they didn't find me until now. I don't think they will catch me.
ตอนแรกเขาก็ไม่คิดว่าเราจะล่วงรู้ถึงขนาดนี้ได้นะเขาเป็นคนที่ฉลาดมากนะครับซึ่งใครจะรู้เท่าทันก็ได้ไงเขาคงวางไว้หลายชั้นก็อย่างที่ว่ากว่าเราจะใช้เวลาคนเป็นร้อยใช้เวลาเป็นเดือนสู้กับคนคนเดียว
ตัวอาชญากรคนนี้เป็นผู้ต้องหาที่มีความชำนาญด้านเทคโนโลยีอันดับหนึ่งถือว่าเป็นเบอร์หนึ่งของด้านไซเบอร์ครามเลยครับอาชญากรคนนี้มีความชำนาญในการหลบหลีกเส้นทางในการตรวจสอบของเจ้าที่ FBI มานานนะครับซึ่งตอนนี้เราสามารถที่จะสืบสวนจนทราบแล้วว่าเขาเนี่ยมากระทำความผิดในประเทศไทยฉะนั้นเนี่ยเป็นเรื่องยากมากครับที่เราจะต้องรวบรวมพยานหลักฐานในการจับกุมตัวอาชญากรคนนี้ให้ได้ความกังวลของตำรวจไทยตำรวจอเมริกาหรือตำรวจต่างชาติที่มาร่วมกันทำงานวันนั้นถือว่าเครียดมากครับทุกคนเราไม่เคยทำถึงขนาดนี้ครับเรามีแค่ติดตามร่องรอยทางบัญชีติดตามข้อมูลทางอิเล็กทรอนิกส์บ้างนะครับแต่ไม่เคยมีการต้องใช้เทคโนโลยีแล้วก็การมอนิเตอร์กันตลอด24ชั่วโมงนะครับ7 วันต่อสัปดาห์30 วันต่อเดือนขนาดนี้ครับถือว่าเป็นการปฏิบัติการที่ค่อนข้างเข้มข้นมากครับสำหรับตำรวจเราครับ
ทำยังไงที่เราจะทำได้ว่าเราต้องจับกลุ่มเขาไว้ได้ในขณะที่เขาใช้เครื่องในฐานะแอดมินเพราะว่าเขาไม่ได้ใช้ตลอดเวลา
Seeing someone's laptop logged into the marketplace also shows that intent. It shows that you are actually the person who's adminning this marketplace. So people that are using Tor cryptocurrencies will almost certainly be using extra security precautions on their laptop. So if law enforcement came, you just close your laptop, it's a giant encrypted brick. There is nothing more watertight than being logged in as an admin through an illegal marketplace. You're clearly involved.
ไม่ใช่เพราะ5 จุลายในปีนั้นเนี่ยไม่ใช่ว่าเราพร้อมคนเดียวคือพร้อมทั้ง10 ประเทศพร้อมกันหมด10 ประเทศคือทำเราเป็นสเต็ปแรกที่เราคอนเซิร์นคือว่าพอเราทำปั๊บจะมีประเทศต่อไปถ้าเราทำแล้วเราเฟลทุกคนก็จะเฟลไปหมดเพราะตัวสำคัญอยู่ที่เรา
ประชุมกันวางแผนแล้วก็มีการปรับแผนการทำงานเนี่ยเรียกว่าวินาทีต่อวินาทีเลยเราจะเข้าชาร์จตอนไหนนะครับเราจะเลือกมุมไหนเมื่อเขาออกมาแล้วใครจะเข้าควบคุมตัวทุกอย่างต้องอยู่ในการควบคุมของเจ้าหน้าที่ตำรวจให้ได้ทั้งหมดจึงจะมีสัญญาณในการเข้าจับกุมตัวนายอเล็กซานเดอร์แคสวันนั้นครับ
คือคนเราเนี่ยกว่าจะรู้สติเนี่ยมันใช้เวลาประมาณ5 second ในการที่จะตัดสินใจ respond อะไรสิ่งเหล่านี้เพราะฉะนั้นเราจะต้องทำในสิ่งที่เราวางแผนไว้ให้เรียบร้อยภายในเวลาวินาทีจำกัดเพราะถ้าเขารู้ตัวว่าเราจะมาเรื่องคอมพิวเตอร์เขาจะปิดเราจะมาเรื่องโทรศัพท์เขาก็จะปิดทุกอย่างต้องเสร็จภายใน9 second
เราจะต้องเข้าควบคุมตัวแล้วยึดอุปกรณ์อิเล็กทรอนิกส์ให้ได้ทั้งหมดครับเพื่อยืนยันว่าเขาไม่สามารถที่จะสั่งการหรือมีการเชื่อมต่อออนไลน์กับระบบอื่นในการเข้าถึงเว็บไซต์ของ Alphabet ได้อีกครับอันนั้นถือว่างานของผมเนี่ยจะต้องทำให้ทุกคนเนี่ยมั่นใจได้ว่าเราสามารถคอนโทรลเว็บไซต์ Alphabet ได้เป็นที่เรียบร้อยแล้วครับเมื่อเราเข้าไปตรวจสอบอุปกรณ์นะครับทางอิเล็กทรอนิกส์เช่นคอมพิวเตอร์โน้ตบุ๊กนะครับหรืออุปกรณ์ทางอิเล็กทรอนิกส์อื่นๆเนี่ยก็จะพบว่าตัวนายอเล็กซานเดอร์แคสเนี่ยได้ฝังพาสเวิร์ดนะครับซึ่งเป็นรูทคีย์ในการเข้าถึงกระเป๋าเงินนะครับที่เรียกว่า wallet ต่างๆเนี่ยของเขาเองที่ใช้ในเคส Alphabet ซึ่งเป็นการที่จะควบคุมนะครับสั่งการแอดมินในระบบ Alphabet นะครับซึ่งตรงเนี้ยเราก็ต้องแกะจากรูทคีย์พวกนี้ครับซึ่งว่าเป็นส่วนสำคัญมากเลยจากคอมพิวเตอร์โน้ตบุ๊กของเขาเอง
Most people use very simple passwords like password or I love you or baseball or things like that. People who run those marketplaces use hard to break passwords.
If you think about a passphrase, not a password, but say a phrase that's a paragraph from a book, all of a sudden becomes very, very challenging to try and guess that.
Trying to break one of those passwords would take an enormous amount of resources. It's not even clear that it's possible. And breaking the encryption itself is basically infeasible with today's technology.
วันที่เราเจออเล็กซานเดอร์ทีมที่เราเข้าไปทีมไซเบอร์ครามเราเข้าไปเนี่ยกำลังออนไลน์ Operation Like Admin นั่นก็คือเราก็มั่นใจในพยานหลักฐานที่เรามีทั้งหมดครับว่านี่แหละเขา
People thought that Alphabet had committed an exit scam. The platform was still there, but you really couldn't take money out of it. The reason why the police did this was to lead people who were on Alphabet to go someplace else, to go to a different market.
This is a landmark operation. Alphabet was roughly 10 times the size of the Silk Road. So we're talking about multiple servers in different countries, hundreds of millions of dollars in cryptocurrency, and a darknet drug trade that spanned the globe.
kasus pedofilia ini sudah sangat darurat untuk Indonesia. Sehingga harus betul-betul serius menanganinya.
Kemudian karena kurang lebih seminggu melaksanakan penyelidikan, itu kita cukup kaget.
Foto-fotonya itu ada anak-anak telanjang.
Mereka sampai bicara mengenai bahwa cukup gampang mendapatkan korban anak-anak. Apalagi kita sebagai guru.
Apa yang mereka lakukan itu sangat tidak etis ya. Saya bilang jahat-jahat. Saya bukan pedofil, saya normal. Saya bukan pedofil, saya normal. Ini hanya saya dan Tuhan yang tahu ya. Itu hanya bohong, karena saya dipaksa mengakui. Saya dipaksa untuk mengakui bahwa saya ada korban, padahal tidak ada. Apa yang mereka lakukan itu sangat tidak etis ya. Saya bilang jahat-jahat karena ingin men-share foto di dalam sebuah grup yang mereka tahu bahwa di situ berseliweran video porno, foto-foto porno. Bahwa kemudian mereka juga mengambil ketika kehabisan bahan, tanda kutip, mereka juga mengambil dari grup lain. Seperti Wawan pun bergabung di grup internasional, ketika ada foto dari grup itu akan ditaruh juga di grup Facebook. Foto-foto yang mereka share itu kebanyakan terjadi di tempat publik. Anak-anak sedang jalan-jalan di pantai, anak-anak sedang jalan di kebun binatang, kemudian difoto, di-share langsung ke grup tersebut, dan itu sangat berbahaya menurut saya. Saya sempat melihat beberapa percakapannya, banyak tips yang kemudian ada di grup itu. Saya mengenal internet itu dari umur 8 tahun ya. Saya internet otodidak, belajar sendiri. Masa kecil saya orangnya introvert, pendiam. Saya lebih suka main dengan gadget saya daripada orang-orang. Waktu kecil saya suka bermain warnet. Saking senangnya ke warnet, saya jalan kaki sampai 1 jam ke warnet itu. Sampai ada aktivitas, akhirnya saya nemu satu pekerjaan, yaitu operator warnet. Jadi ya kehidupan saya di warnet sih banyak kan. Dan dia sering menghabiskan waktunya di warnet. Bahkan Wawan cerita bahwa dia juga akhirnya coba-coba masuk ke deep web. Dan ya itulah kemudian dia akhirnya kenal istilah pedofil. dia diangkat anak, bibi sendiri, dibesarkan. Jadi background keluarganya yang tidak mampu, makanya dia tidak lulus, tidak tamat sampai sekolah SD. Wawan berasal dari keluarga yang di pinggir. Ketika mereka menemukan sebuah grup dan mereka merasa, wow, di grup ini saya menjadi leader nih, saya menjadi pemimpin nih, seperti itu, saya bisa mengendalikan banyak orang. Wawan ingin pride, bangga, teman-teman saya banyak dari internasional. Dia naif, dia boleh menyangkal bahwa dia tidak pernah intercourse dengan anak kecil, bahwa dia bukan pedofil, tapi once dia men-share sebuah foto, dia juga tahu bahwa di situ ada kecenderungan yang foto-foto di-share adalah foto anak kecil dan segala macam, video seks anak kecil, dan dia menutup mata, dan dia sengaja menutup mata, dia menikmati kebanggaannya sebagai admin.
Tapi Wan, kan kamu tahu, itu awalnya banyak sekali itu tentang child pornography. Tapi terus kenapa kamu melanjutkan itu?
Saya tidak melanjutkan ya, jadi saya perjelas lagi, bukan melanjutkan atau tidak melanjutkan. Saya udah jarang aktif juga, saya cuman komen-komen biasa, habis itu.
Pertama, kelihatan dia tidak terlalu atau tidak merasa dia bersalah. Kemudian kedua, dia merasa menjadi korban. Dan yang ketiga, dia mengklarifikasi bahwa dia bukan pelakunya, dia bukan ini, maksudnya tidak sekedar untuk menjadi pedofil dan sebagainya.
Dari Maret 2017 itu kita lakukan cyber patrol. Cyber patrol yang kemudian kita temukan bahwa ada grup Facebook di situ yang namanya Loli Candy, yang kemudian dia isinya yaitu mengenai child pornografi. Dan juga ada laporan dari masyarakat mengenai kasus tersebut. Kemudian berdasarkan laporan tersebut kita tindak lanjuti dengan undercover. Loli Candy termasuk salah satu kasus yang paling besar yang berhasil kita ungkap untuk saat ini. Satu, selain pelaku tersebut dari Indonesia sendiri, dia juga menjadi administrasi atau administrator dari grup-grup lainnya yang kemudian berafiliasi dengan grup internasional. Dari awal kita melakukan penyelidikan, itu kita kurang lebih sekitar 6.000 members yang kita dapatkan di Facebook tersebut. Kemudian karena kurang lebih seminggu melaksanakan penyelidikan, itu kita cukup kaget juga pada saat mendapati bahwa member tersebut sudah menambah menjadi 8.000-an lebih. Kurang lebih total sekitar 10.000 foto dan video. Tentu saja saya kaget pada saat awalnya. Dan ngeri melihat bahwa Facebook grup Loli Candy ini ternyata sebegitu masifnya untuk melakukan share-share data atau informasi atau foto dan video yang berkaitan dengan anak kecil. Tentu saja kita sebagai orang tua memiliki anak yang memiliki kekhawatiran bahwa Facebook ini ternyata bukan hanya satu-satunya sarana komunikasi di antara mereka, tetapi juga mereka membuat grup-grup lain, yaitu dari WhatsApp group maupun Telegram group. Di mana dari WhatsApp group itu sendiri, kita menemukan keterlibatan atau link dengan negara-negara lain yang melibatkan 46 negara lebih. Kemudian berisi sekitar ada 11 grup dan satu grup dari Indonesia dengan jumlah member lebih dari 8.000 members. Karena mereka tahu bahwa Facebook akan melakukan sensoring terhadap apa yang mereka upload, kemudian akan memban akun mereka pada saat mereka melakukan posting-posting hal yang dianggap vulgar oleh Facebook, maka mereka beralih ke WhatsApp group. Dibandingkan dengan yang ada di Facebook, yang di WhatsApp group memang lebih vulgar. Jadi mereka lebih berani bicara, mereka lebih berani untuk share foto-foto dan video real.
These apps, such as WhatsApp and Telegram, provide the user this ability to communicate in a private and secure environment. That's why in this case, for instance, they can build chat groups, which is point-to-point encrypted, and easily share the information in a private and secure environment. The evidence remain on your own device, on a client device. And obviously, the moment you delete the evidence can be permanently deleted and destroyed. There's no way you can recover it back.
Nah, Lolikan di sini dimaksudkan grup untuk anime. Kita membahas spoiler game, anime, dan anime ongoing, yang maksudnya yang lagi tayang sekarang itu apa aja. Jadi pembuat aslinya bukan saya. Dan setelah itu beberapa bulan akunnya menghilang. Jadi member-member yang lama yang udah saya kenal meminta saya untuk bikin baru.
Wawan disebut sebagai otak, dia admin utama. Kemudian Siha yang bertugas membantu, kemudian menyaring keaktifan grup. Tide dan Deden tentu member dan mereka juga admin dan yang paling rutin kemudian mengupload video dan foto. Siha rasanya sebenarnya dia tertarik Wawan dan dia hanya, oh saya udah punya pacar nih, saya harus nurut kepada pacar saya seperti ini. Mungkin once dia merasa ini salah, tapi kan pacar saya juga terlibat di sini seperti itu. Ini kan hanya untuk asik-asik saja seperti itu.
Si Hawan, pacar kamu?
Bukan, teman dekat. Saya kenal dia itu di Facebook. Kenal, ternyata kita ngobrolin soal anime dan kita nyambung gitu. Saya ngajak dia ke grup saya mungkin lebih baik sama dia gitu. Mungkin dia bisa lebih aktif lagi. Terjerumus dengan lingkungan di grup saya gitu, ada yang komen, terus dia dibaik-baikin sama orang, dipuji-puji, mungkin dia terlena, terus suruh ngupload gitu mungkin. Ide itu dulu meminta saya untuk menjadikan dia admin. Ya mungkin yang lebih aktif sih Tide ya, karena dia kan orangnya masih sekolah. Jadi dia di waktu habis sekolah itu masih lenggang lah suara jadi masih bisa dipergunakan untuk mengatur grup. Awalnya saya menjadikan si Ilu ya, Ilu Inayah itu jadi admin karena dia paling dekat sama saya kalau ngobrol. Awalnya kita ketemu di Deep Web Indonesia. Nah di grup saya dia tertarik sekali dengan anime juga, dengan OST anime gitu. Karena banyak permintaan dari member untuk membuat yang kedua. Official Loli Candy 18+.
18 plusnya artinya apa, Wan?
Ya biar yang gabung di situ orang-orang dewasa aja, jangan nggak ada yang anak ABG yang posting sembarangan. Tujuannya seperti itu. Jadi mau bahas pornografi juga yang dewasa gitu loh, yang orangnya udah dewasa. Dan kita itu ada dulu kalau nggak salah pernah bikin peraturan posting pornografi itu di atas jam 10 malam sampai pagi. Kita udah bikin grup yang kedua, yang grup pertama kita nggak bikin kayak gituan karena kita udah capek ngurusin orang-orang kayak gitu. Kita udah sekalian aja, kalau ini nggak bisa dielak. Mereka cuma upload foto aja ya, mungkin foto anak kecil lagi aja, teman disensor. Video porno, video jav, video porno anak kecil juga ada. HP saya rusak, jadi saya tidak memantau grup itu sama sekali. Dan di warnet pun saya jarang buka Facebook, karena waktu itu saya lagi suka-sukanya main game. Jadi saya nggak ada waktu untuk buka Facebook. Saya udah nggak ngurusin kayak gituan, Mbak. Soalnya saya sudah capek tiap hari ngetik orang, jadi mengganggu aktivitas saya. Saya kerja kan kalau malam, kalau siang tidur, istirahat. Tapi keganggu gara-gara itu, kadang ada yang WA, "Bang, ini di postingan Facebook kok ada kayak gini. Aduh, tiap hari banyak yang kayak gitu. Jadi capek, saya biarin aja udah terserah gitu.
Jadi kamu ngelola akun Loli Candy ini sambil kerja di warnet?
Iya, bikinnya juga pas di warnet itu. Bikin akun grupnya itu. Ketika saya mulai memantau, saya kan, wah ini nggak bener kan gitu. Terus saya kickin satu orang, tapi satu orang itu punya banyak akun, punya 5 akun cloningan gitu. Jadi mereka posting tiada henti, dan kita udah capek nge-kick tiap hari.
Kenapa kamu melanjutkan Loli Candy yang kedua?
Karena saya biasanya cari referral ya di situ. Jadi saya bikin link game gitu, tapi saya pakai ADS, Adfly Advertising gitu, dan saya dapat rupiah dari situ.
Nah, setiap kali ada orang klik, mereka sekitar mendapat 1 atau 2 rupiah dari hasil kliknya. Hanya 10.000 sebulan atau 20.000. Ya hanya cukup untuk beli paket data saja sih, kata dia.
Admin yang lain biasanya sih men-share foto dan video itu dengan berharap imbalan pulsa senilai 25.000 atau 50.000.
Akhirnya memang pada dasarnya di grup ini motifnya sekali lagi saya bilang bahwa motifnya bercampur. Ada yang mungkin ekonomi full sehingga dia rajin men-share, ada yang kepuasan seksual.
Tapi kamu ada akhirnya rasa ketertarikan kepada anak-anak?
Enggak, sama sekali enggak. Kalau dulu penasaran, iya penasaran. Cuman ketertarikan enggak. Ya penasaran karena di video yang saya lihat itu si anak kecil ini kayak udah diajarin gitu loh, kok nggak takut, nggak apa gitu. Kok bisa gini kan, anak kecil kan pada umumnya kan polos. Kalau diajak yang aneh-aneh gitu kan pasti takut. Dan yang saya lihat ini malah kebalikannya.
Aku baca ada 6 anak kecil yang jadi korban Wawan. 3 sudah mengakui gitu kalau Wawan pernah deketin.
Oke, waktu itu awalnya saya dipaksa ya. Ini jujur aja ngomong dalam hati, saya dipaksa untuk mengakui. Dan ternyata saya minta bukti visumnya tidak ada. Di persidangan pun juga tidak disebutkan. Boleh cek kalau nggak percaya. Di sidang pun tidak ada korban. Karena bukti visum tidak ada.
Aku mau tanya dong, Wan. Ini ada salah satu posting kamu.
Oh, itu akun saya yang duplikat tadi. Yang banyak mengaku-ngaku akun saya. Akun saya asli, saya nggak pakai foto. Nggak pakai foto asli. Akun saya yang asli ya. Saya cuma pakai icon aja, icon tim game saya dulu.
Kita bisa pastikan bukti-bukti yang kita dapatkan itu tentu saja berlawanan dengan apa yang didapatkan dari hasil atau yang dikatakan oleh Wawan. Yaitu selain menyebarkan foto dan video, juga dia sebagai yang membuat foto dan video tersebut juga sebagai pelaku langsung terhadap anak-anak itu sendiri. Di antara yang sebagai korbannya dia adalah tetangga dan keponakannya. Dia melakukan itu dengan cara mengiming-imingi anak tersebut untuk mau bermain dengan dia sebelum akhirnya dilakukan meraba-raba dan juga penetrasi.
Tujuan destinasi wisata di Indonesia ini sering ada sebutan sebagai surga pedofil dunia seperti itu. Ini data 2010 sampai 2015 berdasarkan UNICEF Indonesia. Sebenarnya jadi angka ini sangat mengkhawatirkan. Saya tidak tahu ya apa yang kemudian menjadikan Indonesia pendidikan seks terhadap anak itu masih agak tabu di Indonesia untuk menjelaskan bahwa ini loh yang disebut sebagai seks walaupun hanya sekedar dipangku oleh orang asing. Awareness dari pemerintah dan harusnya sih gencarnya penegakan hukum juga ya untuk kepada pedofilia ini.
Kurang tingginya kewaspadaan. Kasus pedofilia ini sudah sangat darurat untuk Indonesia, sehingga harus betul-betul serius menanganinya. Jadi dalam hal ini perlu ditingkatkan kewaspadaan dan kesadaran masyarakat. Berani mengatakan tidak, berani mengatakan jangan. Kadang-kadang dalam konteks sopan santun, nggak boleh begitu, nggak sopan dengan tamu.
When you meet them, they are usually very pleasant, quite eloquent. So you wouldn't know that they have been molesting children and abusing children if nobody told you. That's exactly the kind of qualities that will make a child warm up to such a person, because they don't appear threatening at all. And this is the whole modus operandi, you know, because by being so friendly and warm and approachable and trustworthy, in inverted commas, parents would leave their children with these individuals, and then these individuals take advantage of the children. So there is a certain persona, there's a certain presentation that these individuals developed that has worked to their advantage. This whole process is a process of grooming, where the person connects with you with the view of exploiting you totally.
Mereka saling bercerita bahwa dengan menjadi guru TK, mereka akan gampang mendapatkan korban anak-anak. Salah satunya adalah pada saat mereka selesai berolahraga di sekolah. Dengan tubuh yang berkeringat, mereka mendapatkan kepuasan dengan hanya mencium bau keringat anak itu sendiri. Bahkan mereka saling, istilahnya kayak saling jago-jagoan, bahwa saya bisa mendapatkan foto tetangga saya bisa men-share foto ponakan saya, dan itu ponakan sendiri. Bahkan mereka juga melakukan kekerasan dan kemudian divideokan dan di-share terhadap mereka sendiri.
Suatu hal yang perlu kita waspadai bahwa kadang-kadang kita menyangka pedofil ini hanya pria. Padahal sebetulnya wanita juga bisa, perempuan juga bisa. Jadi juga bisa mendapatkan kepuasan melakukan hubungan seksual dengan laki-laki yang masih tergolong anak-anak. Jadi berarti bukan hanya anak perempuan, anak laki-laki juga bisa.
Syihab mengakui bahwa dia ada di grup itu, tapi dia membantah bahwa dia aktif men-share foto anak kecil dan segala macam. Syihab mengatakan tidak, dia tidak tertarik kepada anak-anak kecil, karena dia lebih tertarik ke Wawan.
Memang sebetulnya pedofilia ini kan ada yang betul-betul faktor bawaan, tapi juga ada faktor lingkungan. Jadi faktor bawaan yang memang ada suatu penyimpangan perkembangan psikoseksualnya sehingga lebih menyukai anak-anak, sehingga itu akan terus menyasar anak-anak. Faktor lingkungan bisa karena pernah menjadi korban, kemudian bawah sadarnya memicu suatu keinginan semacam balas dendam dan sebagainya, atau juga pengaruh dari teman-temannya, lingkungannya. Kadang-kadang kalau ada suatu korban eksploitasi seksual, kekerasan seksual, dan sebagainya, kita hanya sibuk menangani pelaku. Korban dilupakan. Ibaratnya sebuah luka, kalau tidak segera diobati, akhirnya juga menimbulkan suatu bekas cacat. Ya. Nah, ini juga cacat pada aspek psikologis ini yang kemudian menjadi suatu yang sangat kompleks, sehingga bisa-bisa dia menjadi pelaku-pelaku pada masa-masa berikutnya. Termasuk yang inisial V tadi, termasuk juga yang menyampaikan hal itu juga.
Waktu itu ketika saya umur 7 tahun, pernah mengalami pelecehan seksual. Tetangga jauh. Jadi saya tiap berangkat sekolah itu lewat depan rumahnya dia. Takut aja. Saya nggak bilang karena dulu saya diancam-ancam. Kalau lewat situ nggak bakal, nggak bakal selamat gitu. Seperti itu. Jadi saya takut, saya mending menutup mulut. Dan saya juga ngomong sama orang itu kan nggak bisa. Curhat sama orang itu nggak bisa. Jadi saya lebih memendam aja.
This group, they use social media for exact purposes this social media built. They need to communicate with people. That's why they use the same strategy. They create a profile, they create the groups, and invite other like-minded people to join them, share information. Many of tools is easily accessible, is publicly available. But obviously, most of the people who run these syndicates, they do have IT knowledge, and they know these platforms, and they can misuse these platforms and conduct the crime.
Kamu tahu kan kalau child pornography itu kriminal?
Awalnya saya tidak tahu. Saya kira itu malah pornografi jenis baru yang nggak pernah saya tahu, karena saya baru pertama kali itu tahu. Ketika saya tahu itu kriminal, saya makanya pengen ninggalin grup itu. Cuman nggak sempat saya tinggal, saya ketangkap.
Biasanya saya bersosial media setiap hari setelah anak-anak saya berangkat ke sekolah dan suami saya berangkat ke kantor. Ada yang nge-share si word.com itu, tulisan bahwa ada satu grup Loli Candy namanya. Saya bagikan ke grup saya namanya Fun Delicious. Saya ceritakan ke mereka kalau misalnya ada grup yang namanya Loli Candy yang mengincar anak-anak. Respon dari teman-teman awalnya nggak percaya. Mereka pikir saya terlalu parno, terlalu takut, menyebarkan hoaks.
Fake news cukup banyak di Indonesia. Saya ukurannya dari ini ya, tim cek fakta aja sehari bisa 5 kali mengecek sebuah berita ini benar atau tidak, seperti itu. Sehari 5 kali berita hoax yang dicek asliannya. Coba bayangkan kalau dalam 1 bulan aja bisa ada 150 juta, itu memang sudah sangat masif.
Kami ada beberapa orang, ada 4 orang masuk ke grup itu, ke grup Loli Candy untuk melihat apakah benar memang ada atau tidak. Yang pertama kali saya lihat waktu melihat grup itu, saya sebenarnya sih kaget ya, karena jumlahnya sangat banyak, mereka ada ribuan. Foto-fotonya itu ada anak-anak telanjang. Foto anak-anak rata-rata yang di-share mereka itu bahkan dari mulai bayi, Mbak. Umur 9 bulan, begitu udah ada. Sampai umur 10 tahun. Yang saya heran di situ bukan hanya anak-anak di lingkungan mereka saja yang mereka cabuli, tetapi mereka juga mau mengambil foto dari akun sosial media orang untuk dikomentari secara seksual. Percakapan yang saya lihat di grup itu, salah satunya adalah bagaimana caranya supaya anak di bawah umur tidak pendarahan ketika dicabuli. Bagaimana tipsnya, bagaimana caranya anak-anak itu juga tidak mengadu kepada orang tuanya. Saya sering sekali nge-post foto-foto anak saya ke akun sosial media saya. Dan sejak kejadian pedofil ini saya sudah nggak pernah, sudah saya privat semua. Akhirnya cuma hanya saya yang melihat dan keluarga-keluarga saya. Suami, ipar-ipar saya, hanya itu, Mbak. Kayak mengumpulkan screenshot, kayak mengumpulkan foto-foto anak-anak korban mereka. Kita lega dan berterima kasih kepada pihak kepolisian karena menanggapi dengan serius keluhan ibu-ibu.
Ada juga aturan yang cukup mengejutkan bagi kita, yaitu salah satunya adalah harus membuktikan bahwa foto dan video yang di-share itu adalah asli. Tide ini sengaja membuktikan bahwa dirinya bisa men-share foto-foto atau video aslinya untuk mendapatkan respon atau mendapatkan kepuasan, sehingga cukup dikenal di kalangan member-member yang lain.
Mereka yang berpartisipan di dalam grup ini juga selain share itu ada interaksi lain yang harus barter, harus ada komunikasi lain yang memang menunjukkan mereka aktif di sini. Dan kalau mereka dapat foto apapun itu, mereka harus menuliskan caption dari mana lokasinya, dari mana asalnya, untuk meyakinkan bahwa foto itu benar ada, biar mereka nggak di-kick dari
Dari kecocokan yang tadi disampaikan.
Mereka juga mempunyai salah satu aturan, atau dari salah satu member ini, mereka mempunyai kebiasaan membuktikan bahwa video atau foto yang dikirim oleh mereka itu adalah asli. Itu dengan cara menuliskan hari, tanggal, atau nama kepada orang yang dituju, dikirimkan untuk membuktikan bahwa ini foto dan video yang diambil nyata, bukan diambil dari sosial media lainnya. Facebook lebih ketat dalam hal filter apa-apa yang diposting di Facebook tersebut. Makanya di Facebook itu mereka berusaha untuk menggunakan kode-kode tertentu. Contohnya kata-kata CP dan lainnya. Itu untuk menyembunyikan bahwa mereka tidak menyebutkan hal itu secara vulgar.
Masih ada interaksi seksual di dalam itu dilarang sama mereka karena itu udah otomatis di-ban sama Facebook. Nah, terus rules yang lain adalah jika ingin memposting suatu kiriman yang terlalu vulgar, sebaiknya disensor. Seperti misal nipple-nya yang disensor menggunakan warna apa, menggunakan emoticon apa, terus alat kelaminnya menggunakan emoticon apa. Terus jangan berikan link biru. Maksudnya link biru kalau misalnya kita posting link, itu dia otomatis berubah warna biru karena link itu aktif. Tapi mereka itu kasih arahan kalau mau posting link di bagian misal link mega.nz, mega.nz, nah itu nggak bakal berubah jadi biru.
Let's take an example of URL. If that URL will contain a keyword that will be flagged by the software, for example. However, if the URL is shortened, the keyword is not anymore present in the URL, and that particular software might not detect it. What we see on the internet currently, the search engine and the information that has been indexed by the search engine represents only 5% of the overall internet. So afterwards, you have what we call the deep web and the dark web.
Dark web is a hidden part of internet. Obviously, they must have a social media platform. Why? Because they need to inform other members what information is available on a darknet.
Mereka menyimpan foto atau video yang tidak sensor di sebuah situs khusus, tapi dari situ kemudian ketika video yang sudah disensor ini tayang, orang yang butuh video lengkap akan mengontak admin. Nah, nanti admin akan memberikan situs tersebut gitu. Nah, ini yang menarik. Satu hal yang menarik kenapa kemudian anggota grup Loli ini sangat banyak sampai 7.000 adalah karena situs yang disediakan Wawan dan lain-lainnya, situs untuk menyimpan video yang tidak disensor ini, firewall-nya sangat sedikit. Jadi semacam kita tidak perlu harus mengklik ke server dan berkali-kali mengklik tautan untuk sampai ke situs itu. Rasanya hanya sampai 3 kali klik, kemudian sampai ke situs utamanya.
Nah, ini menjadi tantangan buat kita, sehingga kita juga mengetahui bahwa, wah, kalau begitu kita tidak bisa lama-lama, karena kita tidak bisa melakukan share video atau foto yang diminta untuk membuktikan keaktifan member. Begitu 4 member ini menerima, atau 4 administrator ini menerima kita sebagai member, kita juga udah mempersiapkan berbagai alasan untuk mengulur waktu, sambil mencari data-data para pelaku yang ada di situ. Kita meminta bantuan dari Facebook untuk melacak atau mendapatkan informasi pelaku-pelaku lainnya. Kalau fake account memang kita pada saat itu melakukan pengecekan dahulu untuk memastikan bahwa ini apakah real atau anonimus kalau di bahasa cybernya. Nah, tetapi juga di situ kita dapatkan pada saat itu ada kontak person yang kebetulan dari nomor telepon mereka.
Wawan, dia pernah memfoto yang terang-terangan tetangganya sendiri. Dia memfoto seorang anak kecil, di-share ke grup itu, dan ternyata ada plat nomornya, sehingga polisi bisa melacaknya.
Kita putuskan, pada saat itu kita rapat, membentuk tim dibagi ke 4 tempat untuk melakukan penangkapan secara bersama-sama. Itu cukup challenging buat kita. Sesuai pembahasan kita kemarin, kasus Lol Candy berhasil sesuai dengan analisa yang kita temukan bahwa ada 4 subjek yang akan kita lakukan penangkapan. Kebetulan 4-4-nya berada di 4 tempat yang berbeda. Nah, analisa teman-teman yang didapatkan bahwa kita harus melakukan penangkapan secara serentak. Tidak bisa dilakukan penangkapan secara beda hari ataupun terpisah. Kenapa? Karena sesuai dengan analisa sementara, mereka sudah mempunyai kode di mana kalau misalnya terjadi sesuatu, mereka akan men-shutdown semuanya, dan kita akan kehilangan data-data yang kita perlukan. Pada saat tetangga ada yang mengenali bahwa kemungkinan subjek Wawan ada di rumah tersebut, kemudian kita cek lagi dari foto yang ada di Facebook, bahwa ada satu sudut bangunan yang pernah difoto sama dia. Nah, ternyata sudut bangunan itulah yang membuat kita yakin bahwa foto tersebut adalah foto bagian dari rumahnya Wawan. Wawan ternyata cukup punya jaringan mungkin ya, di jaringan yang lumayan bagus di daerahnya. Dia mendapatkan informasi bahwa ada yang mencari dia. Dia sempat update statusnya dia bahwa ada yang mencari Wawan. Karena dia bilang bahwa kalau memang itu kawan saya, harusnya langsung aja dong gitu, nggak usah nanya-nanya. Nah, dengan update status itulah kita semakin yakin bahwa rumah tersebut adalah memang rumah yang ditinggali oleh Wawan.
Sosial kembali dikotori tangan tak bertanggung jawab. Sebuah grup di akun Facebook mengajak anggotanya menyebarkan konten porno. Polisi mengamankan 2 pelaku pedofilia dan 2 pelaku yang bertugas menyebarkan video. Salah satu di antaranya remaja putri berusia 16 tahun.
Ini dibentuk September 2016, beranggotakan 7.479 orang member, korban baru 8. Ya, namun demikian baru tadi ada pengakuan setelah saya interogasi di atas, sebelum turun katanya ada grup lain juga, baik di Facebook maupun di WhatsApp, yang ada fotonya di gambarnya ada di handphone yang bersangkutan.
Untuk yang di internasional atau di luar Indonesia, kita mencoba menghubungi dari penegak hukum lainnya, lewat salah satunya adalah lewat FBI. Kita berhasil mengamankan dari Wawan yaitu 3 handphone, kemudian beberapa flash disk USB dari 3 handphone tersebut dan dari flash disk tersebut kita bisa mendapatkan sekitar 2000-an file yang berisi foto dan video tentang child pornography.